focused? Okay, wait, does it work for me though? I think it works for your thumb.
Hit down.
Oh, it actually works.
Wait.
I don't know, half the time it doesn't work. I gotta grab some water real quick too.
It's just if we need it. There's no assigned seat. You do have the one with the best posture.
Hi, we're going to get started. If everybody could get their seat, we can have our congregational meeting, which is going to be very, very exciting. I'm going to make this an exciting one. And I'm going to start by saying John Murray.
John Murray.
That's right. Oh, thank you. Was that for me? How's everybody doing today? I said, how is everybody doing today? There you go. Well, welcome, May 15th. This is our spring congregational meeting. And if you don't know, now you know we have 2 congregational meetings a year, unless we have a special congregation. But this is a chance that we get to kind of vote in our new members. And we actually have another voting item today as well. But before we get started, I'd like to, y'all only have like a couple more, some of you guys only have like a couple more weeks to be on the board. I know CT, look at him. He looks so happy. Oh, Liz, you're looking pretty happy too. Well, that Liz over there, that's the problem we had in every one of our board meetings. We'd say Liz, and then I'd say, which Liz? So why don't everybody, if you don't mind, this is the mic, or which mic are we to pass around? I'd like everybody to kind of introduce themselves.
Oh, sure. You can either use that one.
Okay.
You pull that one.
Is it live? It is not.
Can you unmute it?
It is. I can never tell if people can hear me. Hi, I'm Liz. Someone thought it was a great idea to have a soprano as treasurer. So I'm the treasurer.
I'm the other Liz. Hi. I am your secretary. There you go.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm one of the trustees.
Hi, I'm CT. I'm, for 2 more weeks, the president.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm a trustee.
And I'm Joel, I'm the vice president. And online, I'm guessing is Giles, so if you want to chat and say, hi, I'm Giles, I'm the other outgoing trustee as well. So I want to thank all the board members for all their hard work over the course of the year. It's, it's kind of like a thankless job, but I want to thank you for doing this thankless job. So thank you very much. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so this is our agenda today. Okay, and so the exciting road ahead. So we've had a lot of new faces in Live Oak, and I think it's been really exciting. We've had some transition. We've especially with a new music director, and I think Curtis isn't in the room, but I think Curtis has been awesome, and he's kind of jumped into this. Yeah. And Reverend Jamie is sitting back here as well. Reverend Jamie has really stepped up as the sabbatical minister as well, and I think Reverend, you've done a wonderful job. So thank you very much for all your service as well. Reverend is actually doing kind of a double duty, and we were talking about breakfast tacos, and then there was a Facebook post about how Reverend Jamie was listening to about having emails about breakfast tacos on 2 different churches. So, and then last one, which I think everybody should have seen the announcement, but if you haven't, you got to read the newsletter. But if you don't read the newsletter, we have a new DFLD that has been signed on. So yes. Oh, that's the Director for Lifespan Development. Faith. Oh. Cindy, why don't you tell us?
Director of Lifespan and Faith Development. It's like, we used to call it religious institution, now it's like life, it's not just religious, life.
So yeah, you put me on the spot for an acronym, which is always dangerous. It's in a lot of churches they call it the religious education director, but anyways, so I do want to thank people today. Thank you, Cindy, our acting DFLD, and I'm not going to spell it out. So, did I put the acronym wrong? Yeah. Is it DLFD? See? It's right there. Yeah. It's on the search team.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just somebody for religious education. So, but thank you very much, Cindy, for really stepping up. This has been wonderful, and
Thank you everyone for volunteering.
yeah. And I also want to thank the search team as well. So if there's members of the search team that are in the audience today, Mark Anderson, Sue Buckley, Christopher Carroll, Cindy, and Reverend Joanna. I think there might be only one person in the audience. Mark. Mark. So if you don't mind standing up, and appreciate your service for the search team. I don't think people realize how much goes into kind of doing a search team, and especially just from how quickly, I was amazed how quickly we were able to get a candidate, especially in today's job market as well. I really appreciate all the work that they did. Also, I want to thank the music director search team. So, Lori, Julianne, Rachel, CT, and Reverend Joanna, which I don't think Reverend Joanna can stand up today, but all those that were part of the music director search team, if y'all don't mind standing up. And okay. So we got a new website. Yay. So it's exciting, the new website. They've tried to make it a lot more crisp and clear. I think we had a website that, before, there was a lot of good information on here, but now I think it's a lot more crisp. So thank you, Audrey, for helping set that up. And also Mike for helping set that up as well. I don't know what Mike doesn't do, but so thank you very much, Mike. That's right. That's right. So visit the website. There's a lot of good information on there as well. Okay, attendance. Can you read this slide? Okay, good. I'm kind of a data guy, so we're going to be talking about growth and our plans for growth, and that's going to be one of the things that we vote on today. So I love data. I love analyzing data. And some of the data kind of tells us right here. So if you look at the blue line, those are the online views, okay? I guess I'm going backwards here. I should go forward. Oh, you got the little, thank you, Eileen. So first, if you go to the two red dots, those are in-person views, okay? The black dashes are the online views. The yellow is the total live. So that's how many online versus in-person and in-person. And then the blue is total online views. And an online view could be either live or you looked at it later, per se. So you can see here that the in-person, if you look at that kind of went up and then down, and then kind of back up, and there's a little blip in there. I think someone forgot to record the data at that at that later time point in March. But you can see here it live, just in person. We were we kind of had a little bit of blip, and one of the reasons is we went to a virtual format, right? Especially because of the pandemic, and then we kind of started to peak up a little bit. And you can see here how the live in person is kind of hovering within the 60 to 70 type mark. And then if you look at just online as well, So that's kind of the black mark, right? You'll see that kind of went up, it went down a little bit because people started coming back to service, but we still have a kind of a consistent amount of people doing both online and live. Uh-oh, what are you doing, Mike?
Can you hand me the pointer?
Oh,
I think this is a laser pointer.
yeah, I'm just gonna lose focus.
No, it's in your hand. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, there you go. Okay, so you see it kind of went, our online views went down a little bit, but that's, I think, because people were starting to ramp up attendance live, right? And then we've kind of started to see a little bit, a lot more live, here's the in-person. We've started to see a lot more in-person. And then, so our total live has really been kind of, I think, shooting up in the last month or so. And again, that's both online and live. And I think we're starting to kind of get back into the routine of coming to church and everything. The reason why I say that is if you just look at kind of total live and we look at the online views, we're running at about, 100 to 150 in terms of attendance. And this is pretty important, and I'll tell you why. This is our kind of our pledging households, and I wouldn't really focus too much in kind of the numbers that people are pledging, but I do want to highlight a couple things. One is, in terms of our growth on pledging units, we've been steadily increasing over time. So at 2017 to 2018, we were increasing to 221 total pledging units. Now, I do want to state here that a lot of people that pledge may not necessarily be members, right? And so we have probably about, at this moment, about 140, I think it's 148 members that we've kind of totaled right now. So we've got quite a bit of people that are members, but then people that are kind of pledging non-members as well. I do want to highlight as well, we were kind of in the middle of COVID as well. And yeah, I think that that's kind of an important thing. And I think that people, some people were probably struggling a little bit monetarily wise, right? And so we've seen different levels of donations, but I think that that's kind of a trend of, where we're at in terms of economy, et cetera. So we have seen a dramatic increase in our attendance. And it doesn't necessarily, I would say here, people are kind of donating, what they can at the time as well. But I think it's important to realize a couple things from this chart. We are growing as a congregation, and it may not necessarily be members, but it's also people that are pledging, and they may not necessarily be members as well. So friends to the congregation. So I'm going to go over here the overview of church size theory. And I'm not going to get too much detail into this because I think you can get kind of, you could have like an all-day session on this. But there's several different kinds of churches depending on what your size is. So if you start out, the family church, okay, is, you're kind of less than 75. And when you're in a family church, this is really led by families, right? So you have less of a pastoral influence, and it's more kind of the people that operate. And there's lots of times there's very influential families that really run the church. Then you get to kind of pastoral care, which is kind of within the 76 to 140 range. And this is really kind of the minister-centered. So the minister is kind of the center of the church. And you do have, lay people on the board that run the church as well. But then you start to get into, once you get into the 140 to 220 kind of range, you start to get into this transitional period. And I think this is important for this church. And what you typically see here is you see a lot of stretched ministry. There's a lot of burden that goes on to the minister because there's a lot more responsibilities to do, and it's kind of like a transition period for that church, and you may not have the processes set up to handle the growth that you have as well. And so, and then a lot of churches kind of see this, that's this transitional period. And if they don't deliberately plan for it, it can cause a lot of strain on that congregation. So it's important to really think about this. And then lastly is the program church. And this is maybe where we're headed and what we're kind of proposing as well. And this is kind of a multi-celled, group-centered church where you see a lot more leadership under the programs that you have. And I think Live Oak, we do have a lot of programs, and I think we're moving in that direction. And so the thought is, if we're going to be more intentional about growth, we need to kind of have our systems more set up for that. What people also find is that there's more closer connections in the small groups than you might necessarily see in kind of the larger group connection, because it's, again, you've kind of gotten to a point where it's hard to have that large group family style connection as well. And then the governance is a little more delegated on the kind of the more program-based level. So hopefully that wasn't too process wonky for you, but that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of church size. So we had a town hall meeting in March, and we had a lot of good discussion about this, and we've kind of captured a lot of great ideas. And I think there's a lot of great ideas that came out of the town hall meeting that you guys got to say, okay, if looking at the vision of our church and growth of our church, where are we gonna, what do we want to expand in? What do we want to do? And I think we've got a lot of great ideas. I've kind of highlighted some of those bubbles here today. We're not going to kind of go over that in detail today. But what I'd like to say is that the board is going to take, again, depending on how we vote today, the board's going to take all those suggestions and make kind of an implementable systems for developing this in the future as well. So if we plan to grow as a church, what does that really mean? Organic growth, if we do nothing and we just say, okay, we're going to have people kind of come on and we don't really plan for that, it really does cause strain, as I mentioned. It causes strain not just on the minister, but on the leaders in the organization as well. So we need to be deliberate on the direction about this. We'll need to think about, what are our growth plans, how we do this moving forward. The church may change from a traditional sense, and that may seem a little bit scary at first, but I think it will actually allow for interconnections on kind of a smaller group level. And so it'll have more of a kind of a small group emphasis as well. So the church may change a little bit from what you've seen it. I think it will be, my vision is if we plan for growth, we're not going to do this like overnight. It's going to be kind of a slow progress, a slow drip, so that doesn't seem too out of whack for people as well. I do think that the online presence is going to be very important moving forward. It's going to allow people to attend church, whether or not they're kind of at their comfort level as well. And so I think online church is going to be really critical for us moving forward. And I do think, being a church that's in beta, there are going to be growth pains. And just to kind of realize that is that anytime you kind of dealing with these periods of growth, there are, some challenges in the road ahead. Things won't always be perfect. But, this is church. Nothing ever is perfect, right? So we just got to move forward and do the best we can. So this is the voting item that's going to come up forward. So, if you vote yes for, design for growth, the board will make this a centralized issue for its fall retreat. And then we'll develop a plan to be presented in the December congregational meeting. If you vote no, then the board will just plan as is, and this will be a minister-focused church as well. And so we want to take the directions of what this congregation wants to do as well. So we're not going to vote just yet. I'm going to be transitioning to the next voting item as well. Oh, sorry, before we do that, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience on growth? And we'll see how best we can answer those questions.
Mic check. Hi, my name is Jesse LaRue, and I'm just curious what the motivation is behind the push for growth.
why growth?
Yeah, and I could first try to answer it myself, and then I'll let, some of the board members answer this question as well. I think for part of why we're very interested in growth is we are kind of in that, in my opinion, we're in that transitional period where we see kind of we're seeing kind of a large attendance, but we don't necessarily have the systems in place to handle it just yet, and we want to kind of have that vision going forward for the future. So we want to be intentional about it. I think if you're not intentional about it, my opinion is, and this is what I've just kind of read, is that if you're not intentional about it, it does create a huge strain on the church, and you can actually see kind of a decreased attendance in many church members as well, especially as people start to get burned out, et cetera. So I don't know if you wanted to add something to it.
Yeah, and the board makes decisions for the church about all types of things, and so it's a good question, like why are we bringing this to the congregation to vote on versus just the board deciding? But I think the intentionality of everyone committing to this, because it will require sacrifice and change and embrace across the congregation, is important. So that it's really about, this is the what do we call it? Trying to build consensus, right, of the intentionality behind this. And also, just to clarify, like the reason we shared the pledge numbers is we've changed over the years. And so even though, yes, we've grown a little bit, as you go from a family church where you have the founders, committing a lot of their time and resources and money, as you grow, the percentage of that goes down, and just the way things have changed over the past 30 years that the church has been around, people are giving less of their income to congregations and to churches. And so it kind of, if we're going to stay relevant and a going concern, and if we're going to employ the people that we employ, we need to broaden our inclusivity, right?
The thing that I would add to that is that I have seen a lot of passion and interest from individual congregation members about programs that they want to pursue. I personally really care about RE becoming awesome again because I have people that really benefit from RE. But I know there are people who are very passionate about community outreach and a lot of the things that this church can do to have a really strong impact in the community. And while we're in a smaller space, and our resources are really taxed and we are experiencing burnout from people like being kind of pushed to their limits, we're not really able to achieve that impact in the community that I think a lot of us would like to.
So my question is, if we're planning for growth, do we think that there is possibility of growth? Do we think that there are people out there who would come more to get the numbers up?
I mean, I'll let everybody else. I mean, my opinion is we've got kind of a vision that is very attractive to a lot of members in the community. I mean, people that I've kind of interact as well. And I think that, in my opinion, Live Oak has something special to share. And my belief is that if that's shared, that people will come as well. I mean, we've kind of been seeing kind of the trends in growing. The other thing to think about too is, I mean, just look at the growth rate of the surrounding area, Cedar Park, Leander. I mean, Leander, where I live, was 40,000. Just 2 years ago, and now it's like at 85,000 or something like that in terms of community members. So we're seeing growth in the community, and I think my opinion, it'll likely translate to the church congregation as well.
And just to put a number on that, just the other day I heard the statistic that 80 new people are moving to the area a day. If only one person of those 80 is a UU type kind of person, that's 365 people a year.
Hey, I'm Becky Gregory. I don't really have a question. I just want to chime in that
If we think Unitarianism is important and our principles are important, then we really, I think it is on us to be a little bit, let me say the word evangelical about it, in that if we think these things are good for our community and the world, and I think we do, that's why we're here, then, Unitarianism has a problem of keeping itself secret all the time. And kind of, we're all among each other, and we're cozy, and we don't let people know the way many other denominations do that we're here and that we have a community that shares these values. So I just wanted to toss that in. I think it's important.
Hi, I'm John Durbin. Just a quick comment, not a question. When we vote yes, we aren't saying, oh, go for it, board. We are saying we are committed as individuals to growth, inviting friends, making sure that this is a welcoming place. So it's a commitment on our part to say yes, and not a delegation to the board to go for it.
Well, one thing to be clear, though, is, we, as the board, we will have to provide a little bit of a vision for what to be done, right? And so part of it, could necessarily be that. I think what we would do is kind of look at this closely in our retreat, and then things like, how do we do that will be important, and it will require kind of a commitment from everybody. So I think it's a good point.
A couple of quick comments. This is Ram. One thing is we focused quite a bit on growth before COVID, went to the 2 services and all this stuff. What does the data say, right? Did we really double the number of people who came in? Or what did we learn from that? I think that should go into the growth activity of what are we focusing on. Second comment for me is that when we say growth, are we just looking at sheer numbers coming in? Or are we really focusing on growing how this church helps people who are already here? And I think we talk a lot about programs that are focused outside, and I don't believe we've done enough for our own people here.
Okay, I think that's a good point. I think in terms of the data, I don't know if I could comment on the past data prior to COVID, but what I could comment on is if you just look at our numbers currently going on in terms of, most people look at average daily attendance, and our average daily attendance, if you combine both online and kind of the live attendance, we're kind of creeping into that transitional period number. And so that's when most people say, if you kind of read the literature, that's when most people say you need to be a little bit more deliberate. I think to your second point, I think that's something that we definitely need to do. And I think it's difficult if you don't develop your systems around that as well. Because if you're trying to be organic, this is my opinion, but if you're trying to just be organic, it's very hard to organize and be deliberate for outreach as well. So,
and I would just clarify so that when we started live streaming, when we started the online services, that was really just it wasn't growth. We didn't have a growth mindset about it. That wasn't the reason. It was really just to service our existing members. And so I think if we did live stream in order or as a growth activity, we might do it differently. And to the second point, I would say it's definitely a yes and. We want for the experience for people to when they come here to be one of enrichment and stuff for all of us and for new people. And so it's not like we're leaving all that behind. And also we need to do something else.
So Edith, you had your hand raised, or is that?
So I'm not sure if this is really a comment or a question. I guess if we're going program focused more than minister focused, we're going to have to find a way to make sure that people have easy access to figuring out what programs there all are, because I've had a really hard time with that personally. And so we don't like leave people out, because if we're going fully program focused, that could be a problem.
Yeah, I think that's true, and making kind of communication is part of that as well, so.
So in the visions of the new website, right, is to be more welcoming and centric.
Oh, could you talk in the mic? I can't.
Yeah, so like having a program fair, basically. Yeah. We've done that in the past, so yeah, totally.
But I think that's a fair point, and something that we need to, really encourage as well. So I think that's a great point. Any other questions before we kind of move on to the next voting item? Okay. So here are the current board positions. I think Liz is, she just stepped out, but she's come back in. So again, we've already kind of given a round of applause, but thank you very much for the members of the board and all that you're doing. And so, here are the current board members as well. And here's the current nominating committee. So I wondered if the members of the nominating committee, if you're in the room, if you don't mind standing up. Let's see. So thank you very much to the nominating committee. Becky just quickly stood up. But, the nominating committee is awfully a lot of work in trying to wrangle people to do the positions, and so thank you very much for doing that as well. The one thing I want to highlight here is Mark and Becky, their terms are expiring, but that is important for the voting because they will, we're voting to kind of continue them on as well, so we'll talk about that. So this is the bylaws and the board. So, just to paraphrase, officers serve for 4 one-year terms. At trust, so if you're an officer, you need to be re-voted in every year. At-large trustees serve a 2-year term. So once you're 2 years, you're kind of off off that. You can be re-voted in as well. Except for at-large trustees can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. And no member of the board should serve more than 6 consecutive terms. I don't know if there's anybody who would ever want to do more than 6 consecutive terms, but and this is the nominating committee as well. The nominating committee is a closed committee. They're voted on in May. It'll be composed of 5 members, and they're selected for a 2-year terms, staggered election schedules. So these are the current board positions. And so here, CT is going to be president for 2 more weeks. So June 1st, he's rotating out. The proposal is Joel Burkew, whoever that guy is going to be serving as vice president, and then we'll kind of move on to the next position, to president if voted in. Liz Schwab has served 1 year as treasurer, and so she will be proposing another 1-year term for Liz. Liz Waters is going to be exiting us as secretary June 1st, and we'll be finding a replacement for her. And then Trustee Giles, if you're online, will be rotating out also in June 1st as well. The incoming board positions, so Joel, myself, will be president. Vice president will be Becky Gregory as well. Oh, yeah, Becky, if you don't mind standing up. Okay, and then our treasurer coming back on. I don't know if I don't know if you need to stand up one more time, but Liz is going to be our treasurer for another year. Secretary will be Audrey, so thank you for. And then Trustee Michelle O'Donnell, thank you very much. And then the nominating committee, so basically the nominating committee, Mark Anderson and Becky are gonna be back on for another year. Yeah, I always get confused with this, the Mark A. Anderson, right, or?
That's Mark E, I'm
Mark, okay, Mark E, you're Mark A. Oh man, I get confused by all this. Can you change your name, maybe, or? Okay, so questions or comments before voting, and I'm going to tell you how to vote in just a second. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit new today. If it's confusing, I do have paper ballots. Okay, so it's okay if it doesn't work for you. So I just want to warn you. So before any on the content that you're voting on today, and again, what's actually described, it will be on the ballot as well. So just to be clear. So any questions or comments about voting? One thing just before, it's going to be important that everybody votes because we have to get quorum, we have to have 48 votes from the congregation. So just make sure you vote and online. And we're going to open the online voting for kind of the next weeks just to make sure that we can get everybody in who wasn't here in attendance today as well. So any questions before we move forward with voting? Yes. Could you give them the microphone so people can, so I can make CT walk a bunch?
As a relatively new member to the congregation,
Yeah.
well, I guess that answers my question. Yeah. Never mind.
Oh, I didn't hear.
The question is, do we have to be members to vote?
Yes, you do have to be a member to vote. Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
All right, I didn't read the newsletter. How are we voting? Is it an online vote?
Yes, so, okay, good transition. This is how we vote. Okay, so here's the link, and there's an easy QR code that you can scan to get on your phone, okay? And you will be voting online, so if people could use their QR code. If you cannot do it, the QR code, I do have a paper ballot, but I would prefer people doing online so it's just easier for us to track. So what you do is and if you have a proxy vote, they also have that online as well. So, and if you don't have Wi-Fi, come and ask me about this as well. So
if you prefer just typing it in, link.myvotu.org/voting.
Yeah, and then the people that are on the chat, if you're on chat, actually you could get onto the chat as well, and the chat also has it as well. But if you need a paper ballot and you're like, I can't handle all this newfangled technology, raise your hand and I can bring you a ballot to vote on. Okay.
So this is supposed to be an improvement over holding fingers up and doing all that stuff. So we'll see. See how it goes.
It's a trial period.
So if your cell service doesn't work, the Wi-Fi is, what's the Wi-Fi? I'm trying to remember again.
It's, I don't know if it's on. It's a Covenant, capital C, for the guest Wi-Fi.
Anybody else need a paper ballot? Yes. Okay, so you want a paper ballot?
There we go. So then you're gonna click on this.
Okay, you can put that on the paper ballot as well.
There you go. It should have just
online, we've got a link in the chat for you guys as well, so you probably are well aware of this as well. Let me see if there's anything else. That's it for today, so just, oh, you got something?
Yes.
Sorry.
I forgot to put a slide in. But
We're going to release the engagement survey through the newsletter. I didn't want to have 2 QR codes and have people confused about voting versus engagement survey, but expect to see that coming out soon. It will be a similar online form, and we'd love to hear how everybody's doing.
So if you vote, you're free to, So if you vote, you're free to go. And again, come to me if you need a paper ballot, and it's not working on, and we'll just collect the paper ballots, okay? So thank you very much for your attendance, and that wraps up our congregational meeting.